welcome. Edition of Swishing podcast with Ed and Joe and Ed, recording somewhat live in the basement. It's Monday, April 6th, opening day and college basketball championship day. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of local topics for us tonight. First, definitely want to get into opening day because my lovely co-host was there. We'll touch on some Knicks woes. I feel which is a big story, but no one's really talking about it because everyone's sick and tired of the Knicks. And I don't blame them, but I think it's a bigger story than people letting on. And we'll talk about the ongoing Wisconsin-Duke game, break down and review what we said last week and how I was dead wrong about Kentucky. But before that, like I said, opening day, sun shining, weather's getting better. We're just finally saying how it's warm outside. That means baseball's back. Both New York teams are in action today. Mets were down in Washington, D.C. Yankees are home versus the Toronto Blue Jays. And Joe Calabrese, who's sitting right next to me, moving over from the bar onto the couch to watch this NCAA game because we are good podcasters, so we're doing our job by multitasking. Joseph, how are you, buddy boy? Tell me about the game.
I'm doing great. It was a great day.
Great day? Why, you a Blue Jays fan now?
By great day, I mean I got a lot of color, and it was nice out, and I got to enjoy the weather.
Those are the perks now of going to Yankee games. You get color, and
you get to enjoy the weather.
And you get to enjoy the weather, and you can nap if you want. That's how bad Yankees baseball is becoming.
It's really gotten unwatchable. It's so bad.
See, before we break down the game for me, because I did not watch, Joe was there, and Joe has a pretty good grasp of what went on, obviously. I was talking to my pops before, and I was saying, if you look at this Yankees lineup, you could break it down and say that they're a good team. You could spin it in favor of them being a good team. Because you look at it and you say, all right, it's okay that Jeter's gone. You have Jacoby Ellsbury, who had a good season last year. Brett Gardner had a good season last year. Two very good players right at the top of the lineup. Then you go and think, Brian McCann's not he's not a 230 hitter. He'll be better than that. He came on strong last year with the home runs. He'll have a bounce back year. One of the better offensive catchers in the league. Sure. Teixeira, he's been averaging, I think, roughly 90, a little bit less than 90 games the past 3 years he's been playing. You got to think he'll turn that around. He's Mark Teixeira, great glove. Used to have a power bat. He'll be better. Then you think Carlos Beltran, okay, he comes out of spring training healthy. Beltran, he's switch hitter. He'll hit for power, hit for average. He'll be, another guy you could rely on, but in the middle, the heart of the lineup. And then you bring back A-Rod, who anything A-Rod does is just gravy at this point, just icing on the cake. It's a bonus. So I look at it as that, and I didn't even mention Chase Headley, who's a fine player in his own right.
Deadly Headley.
So I look at it as that I can spin it that way, and you're thinking, oh wow, and that weak division. I know the Red Sox added a couple of bats, probably the better offensive team, but still, there's the wild card spot. They can look at the Sox to run for their money. I could spin it. And that the Yankees are not a bad team. You look at all those names, name-wise, on paper, not a bad team. And then what happened today?
They just don't click. They can't hit. Collectively, they can't hit. They're going to be a 240, 250 collective batting average team the entire season. What I saw today in particular were problems that were evident last year that didn't seem to get rectified. They fired hitting coach Kevin Long from last year because, it was basically time. And I watched.
Didn't he get a job with the Mets or somewhere else?
I think he got a job somewhere else. I forgot where he got a job.
Anyway.
But he's still in the league. But anyway, I watched the game closely from my my grand seats, because I got the connections, I got the hookups, and I'm watching them go through the lineup, the first time. They're not taking pitches. They're not doing the little things that hitters usually do well to put themselves in a position to succeed. They're usually swinging on the first, second, third pitch. They're taking the wrong pitches. I'm watching everybody down the order. And then Alex Emmanuel Rodriguez steps to the plate. And in his first plate appearance in over a year, remember, he didn't play the 2014 season. In his first plate appearance in over a year, he quickly went down 0-2 after getting showered with a lot of cheers, standing ovation, actually. There were a few boos.
That's awesome.
A few boos mixed in here and there.
They better have been Blue Jays fans. That would have been awesome to be there to see A-Rod get an ovation. Because me, I'm on Team A-Rod with you.
Yes.
I'm all about forgiveness. I'm all about #forgive.
I would say 97% of Yankee Stadium was cheering him.
He deserves it.
And it was awesome.
He deserves it. And you know what? If you're a Yankee fan, this game proves anything. and if spring training proved anything, because he was the best offensive player during spring training, Yankees need him. So let's stop booing him and cheer him on, because this guy's he hasn't said a word about playing first. He's been a total class act. Cashman came back and said, I was on the Bottom Line Sports Show. I'm not going to name drop them, with my good friend Gerald Brown, who worked with Sirius XM, and I was talking about, and I was saying how A-Rod, he wasn't even commended for what he did this spring training, how good he was, and playing first base without saying a word. Cashman came out and said, A-Rod's been great in the locker room, this and that. Meanwhile, the Yankees were afraid of him coming back too early, and all he did was shut his mouth, do his job, say the right thing, play where he needs to play, hit wherever he needs to hit in the lineup. And he had a pretty productive spring, and it looks like, according to what you're saying, what you're telling me right now, was the best offensive player they had.
Oh, he was by far their best hitter in the game. Not even close. I told you, he went down 0-2 in his first at-bat. Probably expected. He hasn't seen real game action in over a year. And then he worked the count to 3-2, fouled off a couple of the pitches in the at-bat, and then on the ninth pitch, he walked. So we went from 0-2 to getting the count to his favorite at 3-2, and then he walked. And that's something that nobody else on the Yankees, that I personally believe, I don't think anybody else can do that.
Well, no, because no one else, despite whether you don't like A-Rod or not, or in getting rid of his steroid history, A-Rod's A-Rod. He's one of the best players of all time.
When A-Rod is A-Rod, he's A-Rod.
His eye, you can't teach his eye, Joe. He's one of the best hitters ever. And like I said, put aside your feelings towards him. He's done things in the baseball diamond that not very many people have done, offensively or defensively. So, yeah, when you go and tell me he has the best eye on the team, I'm not shocked. It should be the best eye on the team. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, or should be. So I'm not shocked by that at all. Does it make me feel good about this team? Not really, but especially because we're talking right now. We're breaking down an A-Rod walk. That's That's not what you want to hear after the first game. You want to hear, guys hitting 3-run jacks. But this is how bad Yankees baseball's got, where we're worried about A-Rod walking and no one else being productive at the plate. So are you telling me A-Rod is going to be their best hitter this year?
I truly believe so.
You don't think Ellsbury or Gardner could give him a run for his money? You don't think McCann could come here at 30 home runs?
I think Ellsbury is what he is. He's a good, solid leadoff hitter. He'll hit 270, 280. When we originally signed him, I thought his power numbers would show through a little more because he hit 30 home runs one season with the Red Sox. And that power just hasn't translated specifically to Yankee Stadium yet. And I don't know if it will because he's 32 right now. He just turned 32. So I don't know if he's ever going to be able to regain that pop back. Brett Gardner is a guy who surprisingly has added pop to his bat in the last 2 years, and he hit a home run today, which was the only run that they scored. But like I said, I don't think Gardner is any more of a threat to, say, 290 than a guy like Ellsbury is. They're good 260, 270 hitters. They're good slap hitters. Gardner will hit a lot of doubles, and it seems like he's developed power to the point where you can rely on him to get 12 to 15 home runs every year. And
that was the mark that most people had around for A-Rod.
Yes.
And now from this is just me asking you, from how it sounds, you're thinking A-Rod's going to be over 20.
I don't know if he's going to be over 20, but I could definitely see 15 to 20. In his other two at-bats today, his second at-bat, he got a hit to deep right center, which was sort of into the gap, kind of hung up a little bit, but it was able to drop. And it was kind of in that double range. Right. So obviously the ball hung up a little bit, but it was just enough to drop in for a single. Once again, he got a standing ovation. And then the next time he came to the plate, it was almost virtually an identical hit into the identical spot, except this one had a little more elevation to it and hung up a little bit, and the Blue Jays were able to make the out. So I watched his at-bats, and clearly it doesn't seem like he's lost any of his pop. So it seems to me that if he plays enough, and if he gets enough at-bats, he's going to be able to produce in those at-bats and turn those at-bats into some power numbers.
I don't think he'll lose any of his pop. I think his concerns are his age, his health. If he could turn on that fastball upwards of 95, 96, 97 miles per hour. That's what I'm waiting to see if he could do. That high and tight pitch, the air out of ball can turn on that and make it pay. The ball low and away. I still think if he gets a hold of it, he's a great opposite field hitter, and I think that's definitely going to help. That's keeping his career alive. I think just the fact that he can go both ways, no pun intended, that he could use the whole entire field. And he's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He could definitely, he's not going to lose the power that he's always had. I'm not sure if I can get on board with you saying he's going to be the best offensive player. I think McCann is not a 230 hitter, like I said. I think he'll come closer to 300. I think Ellsbury and Gardner will both have very productive seasons. I think Beltran, to an extent, if he's healthy, will be better. I think Teixeira is a waste of time, but I think
I think that's an understatement. I think Teixeira. I mean, he's got a good glove, but when it comes to the batter's box, he's utterly useless.
Yeah,
he is so bad. I watched him at bat today, and he popped out to shallow left field, and he looked lost the entire time. I don't know where he fell off a cliff. I don't know when it happened. It's
very strange. I know, we made fun of him, going gluten free this off season, trying to lose weight, get in better shape. If you think this helps, great, go for it. I'm not sure if it does help. But, yeah, I think he's just not someone you can rely on. He's not going to be the Teixeira of old. But, with back to A-Rod, and I know we'll move on to the other half of this Yankees team, which is the more interesting factor, I think. But the thing with him is I'm all about forgiveness. I'm all about, wanting to be part of this team. It's just that if you're saying that he's going to be the most important offensive piece and he's the only bright spot of this offense of this team, who pitched for Toronto today? Hutchinson.
Hutchinson.
What's going to happen when you're versing?
You look good too.
Yeah, but what's going to happen when you're versing the top pitchers in the game? That's what I'm afraid of.
Right. They were having these problems last year, and
it's going to be rough.
To come out in that environment on opening day, because the stadium was pretty packed.
Oh, it's opening day.
Probably about 45, 46,000. Usually for capacity, it's 47, 48. There were some empty seats. But for the most part, it was, close to a sellout, if not a sellout. They would announce a sellout, even though I don't trust the Yankees PR team to tell us the truth about the attendance figures. But they came out very flat, and that is very concerning to me. For them to come out in this situation, you got Tanaka back. That's something we haven't even talked about yet. He's a ticking time bomb.
That's a perfect segue. That's a perfect segue to that, because they're saying they're coming out flat, and you're saying we have Tanaka. We can be happy about that. The best part of this Yankees team is not the hitting. They're not going to go out there and score 10 runs and win games 10-9 like Yankees teams of old. Everyone came into the season saying the offense is it's shaky, but pitching, if Tanaka's healthy, if CeCe's healthy, you have Pineda back. A lot of people like this Nathan Eovaldi kid, and I call him a kid, he's older than me, but his electric stuff can develop to be a top-end starter. And then, if Nova is healthy, if, down the line, have an extra guy to throw in who had a lot of bright spots with the Yankees in years past. And I was all for the pitching staff being good. If CeCe's being groomed as a third, fourth starter, I think that you're in a good spot, because if he does reinvent himself, finds, does not rely on the 95 miles per hour fastball and relies on the lower 90s, but learns how to throw his other stuff, his breaking balls, to the outer part of the plate, to backdoor people, I think he could be effective. He's a smart guy. I think putting the weight back on is going to help him. So having him as a 3 or 4 when you just want him to give you, you're not asking for 200, 250 innings. You're asking for upwards of 175. And he's a smart guy. He's a veteran. He's a Hall of Famer. He's been around. He knows I think he'll figure it out. I'm happy with him. Pineda lost some weight. Pineda's could be one of a few teams. I think he's going to have a monster season. And then you have Tanaka, who was in the upper echelons of number one aces in the league at his peak. He started for us today, and after seeing what his performance in spring training and seeing what people was said about him, I know they came out and said that he's not going to throw the 4 seam, he's not going to push himself, and then I'm thinking,
and I can basically confirm those reports, because I was there today and I was monitoring his pitch, what he was throwing, what he wasn't throwing. I was monitoring his velocity.
His out pitch is a splitter. You have arm you have arm issues. You're not going to throw an effective splitter.
Right.
If you have arm issues, you can't throw an effective slider. Those are two very, very hard pitches on your elbow. Let alone, and you're not throwing a four seam either. So he's not rearing back and firing it. So then his they said to him, they asked the translator to respond. The question was why didn't he throw any more fastballs? And the translator came back to the reporter because it wasn't very good. They were hitting it or something along the lines of that. Well, that's an issue. And I get this. I get that it's right after spring training. No one's really at their peak of their game in April. You wait until mid to late May, June is when everyone starts getting back in MLB regular season game shape. That question to me is why not just extend spring training or start the season later so that everyone gets back? Why waste a month of playing meaningless games if everyone's still 75% healthy? That's a different topic for a different day. So Tanaka, Joe says, not throwing what he's capable of. Now, are you saying
taking time bomb because he's obviously not throwing?
So you're saying is it because it's early? It's because it's April 6th, or is it because his UCL is not?
I don't think it's going to hold up. I think they completely botched every.
So you should have had the surgery.
Of course, you should have had the surgery. Absolutely.
I wasn't. Originally I agree with you. I did not agree with you. I thought if they told him that he could just rehab it and get it back to full strength, no surgery. Anytime you have surgery, it's a major thing, and it could alter your career. If you could rehab it back to full strength without having surgery, your body healing it naturally, I feel like is a better option. We've seen Derek Jeter do that. We've seen other players do that. Granted, they're not pitchers. They're not relying on the elbow. They're not really relying on the UCL ligament. Now, for those people listening, going, UCL ligament, what's the difference? What does it matter? All right, so if you're throwing a ball, if you're a pitcher throwing, 100 pitches a game, you're tearing up the you're having micro fractures, micro tears in your muscles. That's the reason why pitchers there's a 5-man rotation. That's why they have days off, because it repairs as the days go on. They repair and they heal back. That's like when you lift weights, your muscles tear, they grow bigger. That's why you don't do the same muscle group days in a row. You give it a rest. That's exactly what happens every time someone pitches. Him tearing his UCL, it's a ligament. That's not the same thing as a muscle. The UCL ligament tears when there's not enough blood flow there. So that's what happened. And usually what the surgery does is it repairs it fully so that the blood flow returns there. But obviously, anytime surgery, you build up, scar tissue and this and that, and you're digging into your skin with tools. And obviously, the whole rehab process is in that. I'm not sure how the rehab process would differ. I'm not sure if you know this. You could speak to if you do how it would differ if you had a surgery compared to just rehabbing it like he did. I know he was throwing balls at the end of last year. If he had the surgery, I'm not sure the time frame would be exactly the same. I think probably it would be longer if he had the surgery. I'm not sure if he'd be pitching. He would have not pitched today if he had the surgery. So with the option to not take it, I don't know how restricted the blood flow is to his ligament. So I'm not sure how he's. You could see his confidence already. You saw his confidence or lack thereof in spring training and today. You saw it today firsthand. He's not rearing back and throwing the four seam. He's not going to rely on his out pitch, the splitter, because you're throwing that ball. You're snapping down. You're jabbing your arm out there. It's very violent on the elbow. He has a slider too. Slider, you got to snap down. You got to almost hold on to it as long as possible, and you got to come down with it as you're releasing. Again, just more stress on the elbow. It's not going to be an easy time for him to recover. I'm not sure if Tanaka is relying on the slow off-speed stuff and a two-seam. He's certainly not going to be in the Cy Young race. He's certainly not going to win 20 games, and the Yankees need him to be that to have any chance at competing.
Right. They don't have an ace. With him being reluctant and hesitant to throw his best stuff, their next best starter is probably Michael Pineda.
Oh, sure.
And then after that is CC Sabathia, but you look at what CC Sabathia has done in his last 2 years, and he's clearly trending down. And then their rotation after that is a bunch of question marks. So when you look at how they've handled Tanaka, they put themselves in a bind because of the way he went about rehabilitating his injury, he's not going to be able to go out guns blazing 100%. He's going to be more reserved in his starts earlier in the season. That is awful because they may be out of the divisional race by the end of May. And I can't help but shake this feeling when I saw Tanaka pitch and I was monitoring his velocity on the big board at the stadium. His fastest pitch was probably, I would say, 91, going off memory. Don't hold me to that, but that was basically what I saw. I saw a lot of off-speed stuff
and coming
today.
From the Yankees in stadium gun, that's pretty low because they usually jack it up too. So in reality, he's probably throwing upper 80s.
Right.
That's an issue.
It's a very, very big issue, and they put a lot of money into Tanaka to be the anchor of this rotation, and we may be looking at a situation where not only this year is going to be lost, but maybe next year too. Because who knows? Maybe he does re-aggravate the injury sometime in June, July, and he's forced to take the time off.
And that's another.
And then you have to worry about that. You're worrying about that at the start of next season.
And that's another Yankee contract in the dust.
Any smart Yankees fan knew that this was a toss year. This was a lost year. Not in the sense that they can't win. They could have made the playoffs.
I wasn't sold that coming in this team was that bad because you look at a team that made the World Series last year, like the Royals, the Giants, and I think if you switch rosters, switch names where they're from, then you're not going to say that the teams are much different. I think it's the bias against the Yankees saying that they're the Yankees, they hate them, their roster's old and decrepit and this and that, but the Royals and the Giants are the fun young teams, and we love seeing the underdog, and right, they've been there. The Giants have been there before. The Royals obviously did all the things right, but I don't know. I just feel like that you could have spun it in the way that if everything goes right for the Yankees, they'll end it because there's no juggernaut in the AL East. But the season all relies now on Tanaka and his elbow. If he's healthy and he pitches to his capability, they'll stay in the conversation. If he's out, the season runs with him. It's just simple as that. So before we go into basketball, any last thoughts on what you saw today?
Going into the season, I had not lofty expectations, but a little more optimistic expectations. I thought they would be like an 84, 85, 86 win team. What I saw today, I don't think their offense is going to improve much on last year. I think it's largely the same unit, and if anything, I think they're going to regress a little bit and struggle for a good part of the regular season. The pitching always seems to come through, but just not having that anchor at the top with Tanaka is really, really going to hurt them eventually. They may be out of it come the end of May, early June. Not that they're the worst team in the American League East, because every team in the AL East has problems, but it just seems like they're not really a well-built team anymore. I mean, there's a lot of balance there, but a lot of square pegs and round holes.
Yeah, there's no young talent. There's no young guys. The future you're really holding out for. Maybe besides Evaldi, I mean Gardner and Ellsbury are older. It's just there's guys who are all on the decline or on the outset of their careers. That's just what it comes down to. And the number one, the best player by far on the team, the number one pitcher we have, Tanaka. If his elbow blows up, then the season blows up. It's just plain and simple. That's exactly what happened. That's the pitching is our strength, and we lose our ace, then it's no longer our strength, and the team is not very good. That's just literally what it is.
I think they're an average to below average team, and I could totally see them not getting to the 500 mark just by the way they look today at the plate. So
real positive news from Joe.
I don't think the sky is falling. I don't think this is me being prisoner of the moment either. I just what I saw today, it didn't look good, and the vibes you got being in the stadium, it was almost like everybody knew that this was, this is the reality of it right now.
Well, another bad team in New York?
The
worst team in New York by far?
Would it be... Give me a second. Oh, the New York Knicks.
That's correct. Now, I know
think about that for a second.
People don't want to hear more talking about the Knicks. Yeah, we all get it. They stink. They're waiting for their top pick in the draft. What they're going to do with it, this and that. But to me, certain things come out in the news, and I see in the media because I do my research. I read. I work for the NBA. I do what I have to do. I do my job. And to see that they did a town hall meeting for the season ticket holders, I thought was actually a good idea. I can't remember the last time a team did that. Was it maybe did the Red Sox maybe do it after the whole chicken scandal, the beer? For some reason, that's in my head that they did. I'm not sure other teams that have ever done that. I thought that's a real good way to be transparent with your fans, people who are spending money on you. I think it's awesome. I think if they pull it off the right way, it would be good. Now, obviously, did things go the right way? No. Phil Jackson comes in and says, someone asked him, about the season. He basically says, crap happens. Didn't use the word crap. You as being my overpaid team president, my $60 million team president, you can't say those kind of things. That's not a real answer, and you're not doing yourself any favors for people who are on your side. And I was on Phil Jackson's side. I was on team. I still am on team Phil Jackson. I still think that he needs to get through this offseason and see how next season goes. You gotta give him a full year with the team. Let him see what he does with the pick and how he builds a team going forward. He was handcuffed into signing Karl-Anthony because James Dolan wanted him. So, he had to do that. Now, he did say some interesting things about why he traded Tyson Chandler and why he traded Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith, and he said he wished that he got more for Iman Shumpert, and he thought that he was going to be a very important part of this team. Shump was hurt a lot this year, and he just didn't really show anything, and he's a free agent this offseason. So Phil did the smart thing and traded him. Now he only got a second-round pick in 2019 for him and JR, and JR has become, yes, LeBron James is their most important player. He's turned it on after his 2-week sabbatical, and the Cavs have been awesome, and Kyrie Irving has played much smarter and just becoming a true point guard like everyone thought he would be. But that being said, J.R. Smith has helped this team in a ton of ways and is really, really, he could have been the difference maker of them being a team that doesn't go that far in the playoffs to an actual championship, the favorite, potentially. So Phil did say that he wished he got more for that. He did say that the whole Chandler issue was again, that he was going to be a free agent, wanted to move him. And that he wanted a guy like Calderon, a shooting point guard. So he explained that, which I thought was good and necessary. Now, a couple of days before that, or a week before that, his good buddy Charlie Rosen came out and said that the Knicks should not draft Karl-Anthony Towns from Kentucky because his butt is not big enough, and that the Knicks should go and try to sign Greg Monroe as a free agent, and that's the guy that you go after. Not to take shots at Greg Monroe. I think he's a fine player. I'm not sure what his age is or how much money he'll cost. He's done really good things in Detroit and helped that team turn around, understand Van Gundy. No taking away from that, but I'm not sure that's the direction the Knicks should go in. The main problem with this, I'm not sure that the New York Post should be writing articles about what Phil Jackson's former coaching buddy from the CBA back in the 80s said. I know he does some analytical stuff for a couple of different organizations, Rosen that is. I just don't think he's an authority figure for the Knicks. He's not the GM. That's Steve Mills. Not the president. That's Phil Jackson. He's not the owner. That's James Dolan. And he's not the coach either. That's Derek Fisher. He's not one of those four titles. I don't want to hear anything from you. So I don't know why this story is coming out, and especially after seeing Towns play in the tournament, which we'll get to shortly. A lot of people now have him as potentially the number one pick. They see him as a better option than Okafor because of a different offensive skill set. He could shoot further from the outside. He's more athletic and run the court, hits his free throws. Not a great defensive player, but probably better than Okafor at this point, and that can be taught. There's a bit more. So people were I guess on his bandwagon now instead of the whole Okafor thing, and Rosen goes and says that. So I read these things, and no one really talks about it anymore because people are just sick and tired of the Knicks. They're just awful. People don't care. But when you see that stories are getting posted from basically just a crony of Phil Jackson, and then he goes to the town hall, which I thought was a good idea, and says that blank happens, and now I'm just shaking my head because it's just one negative thing on top of another and there's no real debate to this. I mean, you could add your 2 cents, Joe, to this. This is just me just bringing up stuff that I just find it absurd. because it should not be news. If your organization is doing this poorly, don't make more of a mockery of it. And now Derek Fisher's being hounded for questioning about his divorce. Again, his divorce has nothing to do with the basketball team. I'll stick up for him and say that that's not affecting his coaching ability. If Steve Kerr was coaching the Knicks, he would not have 63 wins or whatever they have the Warriors are going to end up with. He'd be probably marginally better than where they are right now, but not much. So I don't want to hear that garbage. But that's just based on my little rant on it. If you want to hop in here and create some conversation.
We're going to work backwards from everything you just said.
Sure.
I think Steve Kerr's success in Golden State basically validates Phil Jackson's genius because Kerr was the number one guy he wanted and he couldn't land him.
Well,
and
that
the
was
reason why Kerr didn't come here was
partial
not for
money,
the obvious
partial
stuff.
his money, and partial because he wanted full control of personnel, and he also wanted to.
But Golden State was a much better situation, top to bottom.
And he wanted to not
Everybody
run
knew that.
The triangle, which is a big thing too. He was not going to be. He would have run a variation of it, but he told Phil he's not going to do the full thing. And I don't think Phil Jackson wanted that. He wanted more of a puppet, and Phil wanted, I guess, control the players. So Kerr felt, I guess, slighted and said, see you later. I want to go and coach two of the top guards in the league and a very, very deep team. And, I mean, yeah, he's in the best situation in the NBA right now.
And it works out. Point number 2 about well, obviously we know that the New York media is disastrous. It is brutal. It is unforgiving, relentless. Sure. You know, the whole 9 yards, everything.
Right. Go read Frank Casolo's Twitter. I mean, he kills the Knicks every day.
He destroys them.
And he's a Knicks fan. I mean,
right.
he actually is a Knicks fan. Like, no one realizes. Frank is a Knicks fan. Frank roots the Knicks. No one loves the 90s Knicks teams more than Frank Casolo. I know that firsthand. Like, working with the guy. He loves the Knicks. But he tells it like it is. You can't. What's going to happen if the Knicks win 14 games this year? And he's, they double their win total next year, and people say, like, oh my God, what an improvement! What kind of soft fan base are you that you're going to cheer for under 30 wins and being under 500? It's absurd. And they're trying to praise Phil Jackson now, saying they're playing so hard. This and like all the stuff that media reports and not. It's not every media outlet, but it's some. Especially, I feel like the Post is very, very lenient on them. Just that's partially my point against this is just how that this stuff shouldn't be out there, and it is. But anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's just it's absolutely relentless, and more so in particular, I think basketball is that one sport, especially in New York. I mean, obviously the Yankees own the town, the Giants are extremely popular, but the Yankees get balanced out by the Mets. The Giants get balanced out by the Jets in terms of headlines, back pages, and stuff like that. I never really considered the Nets, even when they were in New Jersey. I don't consider the Nets any kind of.
This is a great point.
Any kind of blip on the radar.
The Knicks own
when it
for
comes
basketball.
To,
you're right, 100%.
Absolutely,
and it's an inner city thing. They play in the Garden.
This is why they always play this as the battle of the boroughs.
Yep.
They're looking to get people so invested in this idea that there are two basketball teams in New York. Meanwhile, this is no disrespect to Nets fans because a bunch of my friends are Nets fans, and Nets fans are very loyal. They're pretty, I would say, actually pretty smart when it comes to basketball. Very reasonable. They don't have these outlandish expectations when it comes to the Nets. But with that being said, you're not even the little brother. You're like the step.
Yeah, you're right.
Brother.
No, they're irrelevant. They're basically irrelevant, and they're not. It's not a competition. You're 100% right about that.
Prokhorov could sell the Nets tomorrow for $2 billion, and the back page of the New York Post tomorrow, should the Knicks play that night, would be something Knicks related with a snarky kind of headline attached to it. And you know I'm 100% right.
You are. I mean, I think a lot of the Brooklyn. I don't. Not to get on this topic again. This is a different topic for a different day. But a lot of the Brooklyn hype was, in part by the whole Jay-Z being an owner thing, and then changing the whole logo and the everything from they were the gray, navy blue, and red to just the black and white, and the logo redesign of that, and moving to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, which is a great place and a great spot. And I'm not taking away from that. I think that's great for the league, and they should promote that, and they should be happy to have a team in a huge market instead of playing out in the Meadowlands and no one went there. It was a wasteland. I'm all for putting a team in Brooklyn, and that's what you're saying. You're not saying to not put a team. You're not saying to not have the Brooklyn Nets team that's promoted and is taking part in the All-Star like they were this year and having people wear their stuff, that's fine. But I feel like a lot of it is artificial. It is superficial. There's no diehard, and there are diehard fans, but there's not. It's not like the Knicks. It's not like they're going to be the pulse of the city like the Knicks are if they're winning. Think about those great Knicks teams and how you turn a lot of these MSG or you want to read about stuff to the Knicks with Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Oak and Anthony Mason and all those guys are everyone wants to talk about them because people love those teams. That was the last good Knicks teams, and they, like I said, when you're playing in the Garden and the Garden's rocking, I mean, there's nothing better than that, and everyone loves that. It's not going to be the same for the Nets ever in the city.
No, absolutely not.
So if the Giants win, it's a huge story. The Jets win, it's a huge story. There's a good equal split. Yankees, Mets, same thing. Mets right now, I think this year the Mets will be the bigger story in baseball than the Yankees, because I think they could be the better team. Hockey, there are a lot of good kind of cultish following Islander fans. The very, they've been there since the 70s, 80s, and they were really, really good. But again, I don't think it's very similar to the Knicks. You're playing in the Garden in the middle of the city. And the Rangers are good. They're rocking. And the Cup run last year, everyone was wearing blue. So I think the Nets and the Knicks and the Rangers are in a similar spot. But I do think that the Islanders, and even you can throw the Devils in there too, they have more of a pull than the Nets do in the city. There's not, more people wear Nets stuff to be cool than wear Nets stuff to be because they actually
now that I don't know about. That is.
I'm going to go on. I think with the Nets, I think with the Devils winning, as recently as they did, having a guy like Marty Brodeur is one of the best NHL players ever, and then the Islanders being so good years back. NHL fans are different. Hockey fans are different. If you're a big cult kind of following guy, that's the only sport where it's like that, where there's no really fair weather people. But again, this is a different time for every day. I don't want to get off, totally off, the trail with this. But anyway, going back to your point, yeah, you're right. I mean, the Knicks are important. The Knicks are the only team that matter in terms of basketball here. So continue with that.
I feel like we're always destroying and obliterating the New York media.
That wasn't the issue. I mean, I've been trying to, but yeah,
I know.
It kind of happened.
I know. It just kind of happened that way. So, would you like me to comment on Karl-Anthony Towns and his big butt?
I just put up the whole
and his no butt.
You don't have to stay on this forever because we got to the college stuff and we'll continue with that. But I mean, I just thought I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, just the insane Post article on that, or the town hall meeting. And
well, of course, I think it's asinine. Everything about that is asinine. But you know something? I've honestly learned to come to expect that and accept it.
I mean, yeah, that's the reality.
That's the reality that we face as Knicks fans.
And
we've been facing this since we were in elementary school, and we're out of college now.
Oh, yeah.
That's 17 years of this.
I'm still Team Phil. I still have to give him time. I can't pull the plug just yet because he has not been given.
I'm 100% unequivocally behind Phil Jackson. I think he's
the
right guy, and
he has the money now. He's going to have the trade. He's going to have to pick who he wants to draft a guy or trade for a guy. So that there's an asset right there. The team, just be patient, wait a couple months, and then the team will look dramatically different.
The one thing that I will say that Phil Jackson did right. And you absolutely cannot do this in New York ever because you get crucified for it, and he's obviously getting crucified in the media now. But he took the team and he rebuilt them the right way. He went with the dynamite and he blew everything up. And now he's doing it his way. And he's a smart enough basketball mind. He's a savvy enough basketball mind. He's been around the block more than a couple of times. This isn't like a Bill Parcells situation. Obviously, apples to oranges, two different sports, but Parcells made his mark with the Giants, and then he went to the Patriots. And then after his second job, he kind of kept getting jobs with the Jets, with the Cowboys, with the Dolphins, only because of his name value. This is obviously a little bit different, but first Jackson was with Chicago, then he was with LA, and now
as a coach.
As a coach, this is different because now he's the president of basketball operations, but as time went on, it seemed like Parcells was losing his touch, so to speak, and it was noticeably visible on the field because it was like same dog, same tricks. When it comes to Phil Jackson, something that I think gets really lost is that when he was a coach, he wasn't necessarily. I mean, obviously he needs guys to fit the triangle offense, but at the same time he also had these great players, and he was able to get the most out of secondary and thirdary. That's not even a word, but he was able to get the most out of lower level guys around them. So he knows how to build a complete team, and he did it from a coach's perspective. And I trust Phil Jackson to the point where I think he could get it done from his position as our president.
I agree, and I think that his name value alone does help people just attract players here. I think anyone that says, "Oh, no one wants to play in New York," like that's not true.
That's going to be different.
It's not true. I mean, it's not like
365 days from now, the New York Knicks are going to be competing for a playoff spot.
Oh, sure.
They're going to be ultra competitive. They're going to fight hard every night, and that's something that has been really lost in the shuffle in these last couple of weeks. Despite the Knicks being god awful, they're not getting blown out anymore. I mean, occasionally
they're playing hard now.
Occasionally you'll have Golden State come in and beat them by 30, but that's obviously based purely on talent discrepancy. But there have been plenty of games against really good teams that everybody says, "Oh, throw it away. The Knicks are going to lose by 40." Meanwhile, they're in the game in the final 5 minutes. So obviously, these are guys like Andrea Bargnani who are not going to be here next year. They're throwaway guys. So obviously, if Fisher is getting enough out of those kind of players at this moment right now, what do you think is going to happen when you give him an entirely new roster with NBA talent? Exactly. Like I said, 365 days from now, we'll be looking back at this year and we'll be laughing how anybody could have ever even remotely thought of these wacky headlines and these awful things to say about the Knicks. They're going to be super competitive. They're going to fight every night. They're going to play good defense. They're going to be a good shooting team. They're going to have a bunch of young talent here that they didn't have a year ago. Carmelo Anthony is going to come back, put up his 25 points a game. He's going to mature. I mean, I think he's mature right now, but he's going to continue to mature in his role as the leader of a system that a lot of people don't think he can run. And I think he can run it because I think the greats always find a way to get it done, which is why I believe in Jackson too. But a year from now, this is all going to be moot.
Yeah, and because the roster outside of Carmelo Anthony could have a different starting player at every position. That's the beauty of it.
Yes,
every single position will be a different player. Will be actual NBA talent, not D League talent. They'll have something to fight for, and I agree with you. I think there's a couple of the spots in the bottom of the Eastern Conference where I think the Knicks could compete for. I did write an article for the blog, and I said how, I'm not going to discount Towns because of his butt size. I think the Knicks could look to trade the picks. I
want Karl-Anthony Towns' butt in New York.
Melo is 31. I'm not going to go and say. I hate when people say, "Oh, he's done, he's finished, he's out of his prime, this and that." Like, LeBron's a year younger. Like, so stop that conversation. It's absurd. Melo has definitely a good 4 or 5 years left in him. But that being said, do I want to wait and see for a guy like Towns or Okafor to develop in 3-4 years and be the player that he's going to be, or do I want to get a guy right now and compete next year? If like I said again, said in the blog, if Sacramento comes knocking on the door and says, "Okay, we can't have Cousins and George Karl here, give us the pick, whatever, and we'll work something out," I'm doing that 10 times out of 10. But that being said, I'm not listening to Charlie Rosen and what he says about Karl-Anthony Towns is butt. Karl-Anthony Towns' team, the Kentucky Wildcats, lost. Me and you. I said that they were going to go undefeated. I said they're going to be one of the best teams of all time. You picked them to lose to Arizona. They ended up losing to Wisconsin.
I chose the wrong horse.
The
logic and the rationale was there.
Yeah, it was.
I completely backed the wrong horse.
I'll give you credit. And they had a real scary test with Notre Dame, who easily could have won that too if they hit a shot at the last 4 minutes. But right now we're a little past. We're kind of halfway in the second half.
We're almost 3/4 of the way through the game.
Wisconsin up 51-45. Before this game, I thought that Duke was going to come out and win. I thought Okafor would have a breakout game in the championship game to show that he is the real deal, like a 25-ish point performance, like 25 and like 10, 11, 12, just to show people that he's a total stud. He's been in foul trouble, so he's not been out there. They have Justice Winslow, too, whose draft stock has risen incredibly high. He's like a 6'7", guy who can play the 2-3, like 215 pounds, defends well, athletic, could shoot. I mean, he's going to be a great NBA player, and he's, like I said, now he's going to move him to the top 5 of the draft. They have the point guard, was it Tyus Jones?
Yes, Tyus Jones.
He's a small guy, but he's going to be a one-and-done player. He'll be in the NBA.
Tyus Jones is going to be one of those guys who should go 5 spots higher than he's going to get taken. I think he should probably go at the back end of the lottery to the mid-first round. He's going to be that guy who slides into, like, 19, 20, like the early 20s in the draft. And some team like San Antonio is going to grab him, and they're going to make him into a great player. He's incredibly smart, and believe it or not, he's a great leader. He's a phenomenal leader.
And he's had the ball every game.
The
ball's been in his hands, and he's controlled the play. And
I would like to cut you off and make a great point that a lot of people don't realize about Duke is that they collectively talking about Jahlil Okafor and is it Tyus Jones? Yeah. I don't know is it Tyus Jones who met early and they decided they were recruited by a bunch of schools including Michigan State and they chose Duke.
That I don't know.
It was Justice Winslow. It's Okafor and somebody else. It could be Winslow. But the point being is that a lot of these guys have played together before they were at Duke. A bunch of them played in the McDonald's All-American game. Obviously, right. Tyus did, Winslow did, Okafor did. And another thing, too, is a lot of these kids have also played for Team USA. A lot of basically everybody, I would say 80% of the Duke starting lineup has played in either the U17, U18, or U19 World Championships. And a lot of people do not realize it. They are really well mature beyond their years, which is why I can totally see the argument that some people might have in picking Okafor over Karl-Anthony Towns. But as I'm watching the tournament, I tend to notice that Okafor seems more like he's an Al Horford kind of player, where he's the guy who you can run your offense through and he'll be a great player for you, but he's not necessarily going to dominate and take over a game. He's better suited to be your first or second best player on a more balanced, great team. I think Towns has the potential where he could be like DeMarcus Cousins and be a standout, flat-out, dominant player in every single way imaginable. Scoring 20 a night, grabbing 10 rebounds, playing exceptional defense, blocking shots left and right. And if you need points in the paint in the final 3 minutes of the game, throw it into Towns and he'll get you that. I think Towns showed more and potential NBA dominant, a more potentially NBA dominant kind of game rather than Okafor. But getting back to the original point, because now I veered off to Towns, I just wanted to make a point that a lot of these Duke kids are much more mature than even they're giving credit of. And they're always getting praised, but they should be praised even higher.
Right. Well, this game is a lot of juniors and seniors. There's a lot of freshmen and sophomores. And this is what I believe is Coach K's ninth time in the championship game, which is incredible. I think the only person who has more is John Wooden at 10. So his success is something that people really need to go back, read through, see all his accomplishments, because he's just amazing what he could do. To break down the Wisconsin side, talking about, they have definitely less talent than this Duke team. There's a lot of, like I said, 3 of these players in Duke's team could be one and done. Decker and Kaminsky, they're not one and done players, but now they're getting some draft hype. A lot of people think Decker can go higher than Kaminsky, even though Kaminsky is going to be the most outstanding player of the year, and he won some other award, Player of the Year, unanimously. He was on first team All-America, this and that. Just a really well-coached team, a team that's been together for a while, and they do all the little things right. And people saying the luck when it'll run out, but maybe it's not luck. Maybe they are just that good, and I think a lot of people think that. But I know you want to break down the actual the futures of these players. So with Decker and Kaminsky, I'm not sure what Kaminsky can do. I don't think Kaminsky will come in and be like a Dirk Nowitzki type player.
No, he's an interesting player though, because I think he's got to roll off the bench for somebody.
Yeah, 100%. He's a 7-footer who could do things on the outside and the inside.
He's like a poor man's Cody Zeller right now for me. Cody Zeller, going back a couple years ago, was a top 5 pick in a weak kind of draft.
Right.
But at the same time, he was able to rebound, and he was a solid scorer.
I think with Kaminsky, he'll be more of a perimeter player, 7-foot perimeter player off the bench for them. I don't think he's strong enough or athletic enough to be an inside presence. I think that,
but he can rebound. That's
you're right.
one thing
No,
he
right.
can do.
I understand that.
And
Like,
he's very crafty, and he's able to put himself in good positions.
I'm just not sure if
player.
these NBA players are going to let him get away with that kind of stuff and him dominating like he has. He has a role. He'll be a first-round pick, a mid-first-round pick, mid to early 20s, I think. Obviously, you love him being a team leader and just being a great guy in the locker room, from all I've heard. And right, his offensive game has no flaws. I'm just not sure if he has the NBA type presence or body, and that makes sense. Decker, on the other hand, I've heard that he's very athletic, but in this system they play, he doesn't get to show that off. Can't shoot the ball. People have said the Keith Van Horn type comparison. Decker will be around 10. I'm not sure if it'll be before. I'll probably say after 10, but around that, he'll be a lottery pick. I think he's not a stand-up spot shooter. I think he'll be more involved. Not a slasher per se, but he has, like I said, the athletic ability where he could do more. So I'm not totally in love with that comparison, but I think both these guys will be taken in the first round. So I'll think about all those players right now. I mean, we just went through 5 players who could all be taken in the first round, all in this game. So that's what I mean. All the Duke team is the one and dones, and the Wisconsin is more of the team-oriented aspect of it. But we've never.
Five guys who are going to be. There are going to be 5 guys who are locked for the top 25.
Oh right, yeah.
And in this Final Four in particular, if you add the guys from Kentucky, what was it, 6? Another 6 or 7?
Having, Towns, I was going to be a top 2. And then you have the Harrison twins. I mean, they might get a cup of coffee in the league. I'm not sure if they might be more of a European.
No, I still like that. I still like the Harrison twins to 6 somewhere. I think Aaron Harrison is a big time gamer. I think he hits a lot of big shots, and I think he's got a role somewhere.
They might be
maybe
second
not
round
as
picks.
a starter,
they might be
but
second round picks. I'm not sure if they're going to stay in this league. Cauley Stein will be a Tyson Chandler type player, so you're not going to get that much offense out of him. But defensively, he's just all over the place. He's just a long, lanky player who can still run the floor, blocks a ton of shots, gets his rebounds. I think that's really useful in today's NBA. Everyone wants a rim protector. He's definitely that. Not sure where you want to draft a rim protector, how high. Obviously, will be a first-round pick. But, so adding on those Kentucky players to the Duke players and the Wisconsin players, 3 of the 4 Final Four teams, you're getting a lot of talent. I can't think of the last time we've had that much first-round NBA talent this late in the college season. So it's definitely fun to watch if you're an NBA fan. For us, it is an extra incentive to watch because of us being Knicks fans. If we look at these guys we could potentially draft. So I think some of these players will stick. I think this draft might be better. Everyone loved last year's draft. Not sure if there's the top end, superstar talent. I think Wiggins and Parker are both these stars, legit stars in this league. Towns and Okafor have the chance. I think D'Angelo Russell has a chance. I think Justice Winslow has a chance. I think Moody has a chance. Outside of that, I'm not sure who will be a star. There's guys like Stanley Johnson are talked about, but they're bouncing around.
I think this draft in particular has a lot of good NBA stars.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah.
I think last year's draft was more top-heavy, had more all-stars.
Right.
But I think this year has a lot more depth.
Yeah, sure.
I think there are
more useful NBA players. Right. I'm with you on that.
I think the depth of last year's draft was a little overrated. Going after the 20s, I didn't really see anybody in particular who could really stick around. And now you look at this year's draft, and like we were saying before, the Harrison twins could easily be taken in the 20s. You don't know what.
I still think they're more second-round picks. I think I'm not sure if they're going to stick in the league, from what I've heard.
Okay. I mean, you would know more than me.
Can't give away my sources, but from what I've heard. Look, it only takes one team to go take them, One team late in the first round likes them.
I think they're so uberly talented that it's going to be hard to pass.
All right, so before we wrap this up, the last 2 things I want to ask you. You're since talking about Kentucky and their talent, their players. Is this season a failure, or where do you people? That's been the conversation now.
I don't think it's a failure. I was very harsh on them the last time we podcasted, and I was very adamant about them losing, although to the wrong team. But the logic was all there, like we said. I think it really sucked for them because I think that they were truly the best team in the country this year.
Oh, by far.
But the way the season played out, they were a victim of circumstance because they were immensely talented. But I mean, sometimes it's in the cards where you're going to lose a game. And I was comparing them to these like especially the Kentucky team of 2012. They ended up losing a late game late in the regular season, and that ended up like essentially pissing them off to the point where they steamrolled everybody through the tournament, and they won every game, and it wasn't even close that year.
Yeah,
they truly looked like the dominant team. I looked at Kentucky the first couple of rounds this year. They obviously had that huge game against West Virginia, and then everybody watched that game and like, oh my God, how are they not going to be able to roll through? And then lo and behold, Notre Dame comes and they played a smart game. Probably should have won. Could have beat them.
I mean, you can say that, but then on the flip side, you can say Kentucky didn't miss a shot the last 12 minutes.
Right.
So
Kentucky won that game more than I thought Notre Dame lost because I thought Notre Dame played really well down the stretch. The only thing is Jerry Grant's final possession of the game was
They did as well as they could have.
Absolutely,
versus a team with that's way more talented.
Absolutely, I think a lot of people are going to look at this season as a failure.
Sure,
I think you really shouldn't because if anything, a season like this only reaffirms what most people know about a guy like John Calipari. He's
30-1. Did it with the Anthony Davis team. He did it with the team with Cousins, Bledsoe, and Wall. He's going to get the big name players. He's going to bring them deep in the tournament every year. Yes, he has to finally start winning because Kentucky's not going to be remembered as a team who does not win championships. Just gets deep.
It seems like
you don't want that moniker, but I'm with you though.
It seems like at some point, if he stays in college, he's going to get a second title. I feel like it's inevitable.
Sure, definitely.
I really, truly feel like it's inevitable. He has that personality that's like he's basically, to me, I feel like he's our generation's Rick Pitino. And I mean, Rick Pitino's obviously still coaching, but Pitino was a big time coach in the late 80s and for a majority of the 90s, and now he's extended his window. I feel like what Pitino was in the 90s, Calipari is now. I feel like he's only getting started. And I still think he's got a long time left in him. At least another 15 to 20 years in this.
He's perfect for what these players want in this era. He's like the 31st NBA coach. I think I said that last podcast. And he gets
That's
the guys
a perfect way to describe him.
He prepares them and gets them ready to go. And I think that recruiters are going to love that. It's just going to be a huge...
Which is why he won't work in the NBA.
Factory.
I don't think he would be good. I just don't think he would work long term in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think he knows that too. I think a part of what he loves to do is recruit. I mean, you could technically recruit in the NBA. It's not the same type of recruiting.
His charisma, his natural ability to just it's much better suited for the college.
No, I'm with you on that.
He's like a cult leader almost. Another apples to orange comparison, two different sports. Kentucky is like the Seattle Seahawks, and Pete Carroll is like John Calipari, where they're essentially like these phenomenally charismatic cult leaders who bring these incredibly talented players in, and they say, "Listen, check your ego out the door, buy into our system. We can make you something special." And this Kentucky team didn't win the national championship, but neither did the UNLV team, the team that lost in the Final Four too. And we're still talking about them, aren't we?
Yeah.
So 20 years from now, we're going to be talking about that Kentucky team that came that close to being undefeated, but they lost that epic rematch against Wisconsin after beating them the year before. And that game was phenomenal. It was amazing. It really lived up to the billing and then some.
Oh, sure. And I think that in a way, there's a failure. Yes, they did not win. They were the best team, so obviously the best team not winning, it hurts you. And it's the NCAA selling its soul to make the 1 month matter. And just, have this whole tournament style thing, which is, everyone loves it. But that's what it's one and done. That's what it hurts you. The regular season kind of doesn't really mean anything. But I think the one bright spot for this Kentucky team is that it will keep happening year after year after year. They'll always get the best players in. Next year I won't be surprised if they're back in the mix again. They're going to get the top end talent. They're going to be a factory and just keep sending players up to the NBA who are the best in the country. And if Calipari stays there, he'll be doing that as long as he wants, and that's just what it comes down to. We got 5 minutes left in this game. We're watching in front of us, tie game now, Wisconsin-Duke. So who did you?
Now we're giving play-by-play.
Who did you pick? No, I'm ending our podcast because we're running kind of long with A question: who did you pick going in? I haven't talked to you. Who did you pick going into this game?
I thought Wisconsin would win because I think they're riding the wave of momentum.
Okay, so I said before I picked Duke. I thought Okafor was going to have a big game. What is your prediction now?
As I'm watching this game unfold, I still think Wisconsin's going to end up pulling it out in the end because I think they're just too. They've got the Kaminsky and Decker, Nigel Hayes. Like these guys were there last year.
So
they came that close.
Perfect way to end. 5 minutes left. Duke, Wisconsin, 56 all.
56 all.
Joe's going Wisconsin. I'm going Duke with saying Okafor's going to have a big game. Who's not even in the game.
Kaminsky's owning the second half right now. 7 first half points. Now he's got 11 second half points.
And the one thing, my last thing I'll say, Coach K not putting in Okafor. Towns wasn't fed the ball at the end of the last game either. So I don't know why these coaches, they outcoach themselves. When you have, arguably the best player in the nation, why don't you use them?
They're both team. I think when I was watching the Kentucky team and I'm watching this Duke team, we've been watching them for the last, half hour as we've been podcasting in front of us. It seems like they're playing right into Wisconsin's hands. Wisconsin wants to be a perimeter team and they want to be able to use their versatility against you. And I think it's really been. I really think they've been getting Kentucky and Duke to play into their hands really well. But except as I say that, what was that? Who was that? Tyus Jones? Yep, Tyus Jones just hit a three. He's having a monster. I love him. I think he's going to be a great pro. If he had some size,
man, he'd be something else.
I think he's going to be. Even if he's not big, I think he's going to be a great pro. He just, like I said, leader, intangibles there. He's got all the skill in the world. He's doing this on the biggest stage. Man, this is a really good game.
This is a really good podcast.
This was a really good podcast.
Three good topics or so. We somehow stretched it to one of our longer ones, I think. I know it was very New York centric. We did some Yankees and Knicks, and we didn't even touch on the Rangers who won overtime tonight and other stuff around the league.
We watched that live,
but
too.
we had to get a podcast in. We had to. It was been a busy week for us. I'm going to Boston this week, so we'll come back. We'll be podcasting again. I guess hopefully Sunday, Monday next week. I'm sure we'll get more baseball, more hockey recaps, this and that. We'll review the ending of this game, see who was right, Joe or myself. A lot of things going on. So as we get into the playoff time for the NBA, NHL, it should be very fun. And draft preview soon. We will have our draft special where we're going to do our mock draft, me and Joe, and hopefully you have some of our other writers around. We'll do that. So just stay tuned. Keep reading the blog, just in Swishing Podcast. .wordpress.com for the future blogs. Follow us at DNS_podcast for our tweets. Follow me at Edward L. Murphy and follow Joe at Joe_Calabrese92.
You'll remember that eventually.
Yeah, so we got to get again. I keep saying we're trying to get an iTunes. We'll get on that. We'll get that figured out soon. So the podcast this will be up tomorrow. You guys listen to it. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for all the support of all our friends and our Twitter followers and listeners, this and that, and tweet at us for any other questions, stuff you want us to cover. And then I guess we'll see you in a week. Joe, any last comments or thoughts?
No, just enjoy the title game. What's left of it? We'll get to that next week. So, as always, I'm Joe.
And I am Eddie. And we'll see you in a week.